I'm more than a rare exception, you can't compare him. I'm fly as Tuskegee Airman. My patience is as thin as her pins. You find a sucker cat that's talking smack and I'll just dare him. Come at me sideways attacking, I'm pushing back.
WWE is on cruise control until January the 6th. They're not willing to tell you that, but that's what's happening. From Saturday night's main event to this episode of Monday Night Raw to SmackDown being taped, NXT seems to be the only product that's actually trying to further what they're doing on television. The Triple H era, the Get In era. We gotta talk about Monday Night Raw from December the 16th. I don't really want to. I looked at the screen probably a grand total of 6 times because there was only things worth looking at. But it was a show. There was a crowd. The crowd seemed to be okay. They were at least happy about the main event, even though I don't understand why. But we'll talk about it. Let's get into it. There's not much in the way of news and notes, except some people just did not like Saturday night's main event, which was hilarious. But I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all. Triple H has been very stingy with moments and very generous with mid-carders. That's just kind of how he is. Anyway, let's talk about CM Punk and Seth Rollins, because they have a thing. I'm not going to go through this. I'm assuming you watched it. CM Punk calls Seth Rollins his biggest failure, but says that he's willing to give Seth Rollins what he wanted several years ago, which was that free lesson. Seth Rollins said that he was in the crowd because he wanted to see CM Punk from the fans' perspective, but he's still an a-hole. And then CM Punk says, that's where you deserve to be. That's where you should be, in the crowd with the rest of the CM Punk fans. That was a pretty good burn, by the way. So Seth Rollins says he'll always be a fan. He was a fan years ago, and he says that while Punk was gone, he put this place on his back, made it strong again, and then said that this fan has did more than CM Punk. This fan has main evented more WrestleManias than Phil ever will. It's because he called him Phil, CM Punk got all in a huff and went out there and they started to fight. And they had a bit of a brawl with a big separation. It was a whole thing. It was just a whole thing. Now, in terms of this opening segment, Punk, he ran out of gas, I think. Like, it was okay at the start, and then he just kind of started running out of material. He was trying to goad Rollins into coming out, which was the point of the promo, but it kind of went on a little long. He did a bunch of stuff about Liberace and Elton John, basically calling him Seth Rollins a CM Punk wannabe, which is fine. I'm not surprised he went there. I mean, it's the right thing to do. But I don't know if this promo was the strongest one CM Punk has ever cut. And from Seth Rollins' perspective, he's just very annoying. I don't know what it is about that, but he's very annoying. So then CM Punk, he disappeared for the night. And then Seth Rollins was screaming at Adam Pearce. Then Adam Pearce was screaming at Seth Rollins. You think that Adam Pearce didn't know what he did for a living, because all he does is scream at people for fighting. It's like, bro, this is professional wrestling. All they do is fight. I don't remember Gorilla Monsoon or Jack Tunney or anybody getting that upset about extracurricular fighting. Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce is always on 400 degrees over these guys fighting outside the ring. I don't understand it. Anyway, their screaming match turns into Adam Pearce giving Seth Rollins what he wants, which is CM Punk versus Seth freaking Rollins, January the 6th on Netflix. So, this was kind of spoiled by the wrestling media, and I've had some time to really consider it, to think about it. Considering Rollins doesn't have the belt, this can just be a huge match for TV. I gave Triple H a lot of credit for taking big matches that people do want to see and placing them in strategically on important shows. He did it with Saturday night's main event while he built up the Women's United States Championship tournament. He also, Rhodes and Owens and a couple of other things that he put on that show, which were very well built up over time. The Netflix show is the next big landmark show. It's in some ways more important than the next Saturday night's main event. It's in some ways more important than the Royal Rumble because you want to start off Netflix in a big way. And I don't mean like it's going to be a bigger event than the Royal Rumble. What I mean is you want to put your best foot forward when it comes to getting this new deal. You want to get as many people watching this show as you possibly can. And having Rollins and Punk on this show can do that. Even though this was probably going to be the WrestleMania main event of last year, it's going to be the main event of one of the main events of Netflix Raw this year. The only problem is they're loading up the Netflix Raw so much that it's impossible for them to keep it up. So what I would have done is probably put Rollins and Punk on the second show and then let Roman wrestle on the first show. Because if you throw everything at the first show, what the fuck is the second show going to be about? You know? And it seems to me like they're loading up the Netflix show without caring about the actual nationwide television product that they have to produce. Now, the Saturday night's main event, we did a live stream on that. I just give a genuine concern about that whole ordeal. People are like, oh, it was just a televised house show. And some people didn't think that was a bad idea, that was a bad thing. To me, that was the worst possible thing you could have done, is turn it into just a house show. Because why else do we want to watch it? If it's just tribute to the troops, why do I want to watch that? I don't want to watch it if there's nothing going to be furthered on that show. If you're going to save everything for Netflix, then why even position that show right there? You should have just saved it. And then if you're going to have a Saturday night's main event, why even concern ourselves with Raw and SmackDown? Because if you're not going to do anything on that show, it's a quarterly show that you're being paid to produce. You're not going to do anything on that show. Then I can pretty much damn well guess you're not going to do anything on Raw or SmackDown up until that point. So, I'm just saying, So Punk versus Rollins is a smart move. I don't know why they would put it on the same night as Roman and Solo. You don't really need to do that. But they're going to do it. And that's going to be great. It's going to be a pay-per-view level show, because those are pay-per-view level matches. Those are not the kind of matches you're going to get every week on Netflix. Guaranteed. But they did it. And when I first heard about it, when it first got spoiled, I was like, man, that's kind of stupid. But now I'm thinking about it like, yeah, go ahead and get it out of the way. Let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. What else do we need to get out of the way? This Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley thing. I'm sick of it. I'm sick to death of it. We start backstage with Liv Morgan mocking Finn Balor for losing, saying, why does listening to Finn and you win work for her, but it didn't work for Finn? Finn was upset that he had to wrestle by himself because, he's a singles wrestler and he didn't want to wrestle by himself. Very weird. In any event, Liv Morgan, Dominic, and Raquel Rodriguez, they went out to the ring so that Liv can use her new megaphone to talk about being the GOAT. This didn't go very far. Dominic Mysterio, he still has a ton of heat, but it's not legitimate anymore. It's just kind of a gimmick. Like how people just got used to chanting, "You suck" at Kurt Angle. Like, they didn't mean it. It was just a thing that they do. And that's how Dominic is now. There was a time when Dominic was the most hated guy on the roster. And then, they took him out of the ring. He stopped doing stuff. He just lost just all the time. And so he lost a lot of his heat. But they have still been trained that if Dominic Mysterio is trying to talk, they should boo. And so that's what they do. But he didn't really have an opportunity to do anything, and there's no real reason for them to continue doing this. Anyway, Rhea Ripley came out there because of course she did. She got in Liv Morgan's face because of course she did. And she's, of course, the number one contender to the women's world title. And they're going to have that match, I'm guessing, on the Netflix show. I don't understand it. Look, I guess Rhea Ripley is a sensible number one contender, but she's already lost. She did win War Games, but it's like, man, is this roster really that small, or is it like when Vince was just like, break glass for Charlotte? Like, how did we keep getting Randy Orton and Edge and John Cena and over and over again? You start thinking about that kind of stuff a little bit, later on, but it's kind of like we're in that trap right now. We're in a Chinese finger trap where it's just Liv and Rhea forever and ever, and I'm sick of it. I don't care who wins. I don't care who loses. I'm sick of it. Ludwig Kaiser loses to Bron Breakker. The match didn't really get over until near the end when Bron started to kind of fire up. This idea of Bron Breakker not really being a babyface, but he's also not a heel, I don't like that, because he had to work face here because Kaiser is such a heel. And it works because people like Bron Breakker. But at the same time, I'm not sure if working this way works for Bron. He might be a Goldberg-like figure where people don't really want to see him sell that much. They want to see him smash shit, which is good, but you have to develop selling. You have to develop some sympathy. And maybe the idea is more who he was selling to, that Kaiser was not considered a legitimate threat. So all the time Bron Breakker was spent selling to Ludwig Kaiser, people was just kind of like, why just crush this guy? It's not like, you've seen Kaiser win 1,000 matches and then all of a sudden Bron Breakker's having a problem with the guy. It's like, no, Bron should be able to crush this dude. Kaiser is a loser. He never wins. And from that perspective, I get it. But I like Ludwig Kaiser. But this just felt like, Goldberg versus Chris Jericho kind of thing. So that was that. So Seth Rollins, I forgot to mention this. Drew McIntyre tried to seduce him into fighting the Bloodline. But Seth Rollins says that he's friends with Jay and Sammy because they helped him oust Roman Reigns before, and he respects them, unlike Drew McIntyre. And he says that he don't know about Drew yet. And then said he's going to go and finish CM Punk, something that Drew McIntyre couldn't do. Later on, Sami Zayn attacked Drew McIntyre and they had another pull apart because, feuds don't end with clean losses in WWE. I don't understand how you just eat clean pins and you just continue to feud. I don't know. The New Day has been kicked out of the locker room by Rey Mysterio, of all people, which is stunning that Rey would throw people out of the locker room. But Rey has been turned on so many times, and I'm not surprised that he just has no chill when it comes to this. He just don't want to deal with this. So then there's that. The Miz wants to be done with the Final Testament. He said, hey, we beat the Wyatts. That's it. It's over. But Karrion Kross was like, nope. The Wyatts put their hands on my wife. The Wyatts put their hands on Ellering. Now we go on the attack. And so he set up the Miz to fight Dexter Lumis. And then said that he's going to teach the Miz a lesson about making deals with the devil. Okay. So the Wyatts thing is not over. And at least you can see it from some perspective that Kross is not completely happy with just winning a match, that he wants a little bit more. And okay, they did scare his wife, put their hands on his wife. All right. I kind of get it. I also love the Miz here. He was tremendous and being disingenuous and thinking, you know what? Hey, this whole thing is over. The nightmare is done. I can safely get out of this deal. I'm like, nah. And Kross kind of metaphorically grabbing him by the collar, pulling him back in. I get it. I like this. Pete Dunne is still mad about R-Truth using the name Butch. Chad Gable is still confronting Otis. That feud's never going to end. Stop trying to tease everybody. That sucks. Then there was the Intercontinental Championship tournament match. Raquel Rodriguez, Zoe Stark, and Kaden Carter. Zoe Stark won the match, pinning Kaden Carter, who was only in the match to take the loss. And Zoe Stark, could you pick somebody more boring than Zoe Stark? I mean, she's Mrs. Boring. She's the female Lance Storm. Just box head and everything. It's just terrible. God fucking awful. The shits even. Next, the lesbian collective attacked Kyrie backstage. And I don't know what Kyrie was doing by herself. She must have been wanting to get some ice cream or some soba noodles or something. Who knows? And they crushed her hand, I think. But she did a great job screaming and selling the whole thing. Apparently, she's going to be replaced by Io in the Intercontinental Championship tournament. Because, of course, she will be. We're trapped with the same people over and over again. Io just lost to Liv Morgan, but she just fell backwards into another opportunity, and other people, well, get fucked. Oh, hey, we've got somebody else that might be able to, show a little something on the TV. Get fucked. Just put Io in there. This whole thing was about teasing you with. I don't even know if Kyrie is really injured. I don't even think she's really injured. I think all of this was just about we're going to sneak her in through the back door. And that's essentially what they did. Is now Io is in and probably going to win the tournament through the back door. Ridiculous. If she is injured, even if Kyrie really is injured, you could have replaced her with somebody else. I mean, the Triple H bias is just so obvious. I mean, my God. Next thing you know, Io is going to be taking CM Punk's place if he hurts his foot before he hasn't had that match with Seth Rollins. We got the tag team title match was the main event of the show. Absolutely absurd. They had a promo segment where the War Raiders were talking about their injuries and how their arms went numb and how they couldn't hold their son's hands and couldn't carry him and all this stuff. And they're saying it in the most, evil way possible with smoke and shit. You don't know what it's like for your arms to go numb and you can't carry your old son. I'm like, you're a victim. I don't want to hear about your victim stories. I want to hear what you're going to do to somebody else. Anyway, Finn Balor continues his losing streak when he takes the L in his tag team championship match. He is the one that gets pinned. He tries to get a chair. Damian Priest snatches the chair from Finn Balor. Of course he did, because Damian Priest is still a thing in Finn Balor's life. And the War Raiders are not a tag team champions, and we all are supposed to pretend to care, even though we don't. I don't know. This was not a legitimate main event as far as I'm concerned. These shows not building up the main event during the show is just kind of, here's the main event. And I'm like, why is this the main event? The War Raiders are not a main event act. Finn Balor and JD McDonough are not a main event act. Why are they closing the show? Are we surprised that Raw's ratings have stagnated and in some ways dropped when you're doing stuff like this? These are not main event acts. You're just putting them on last because you like them. And then you're not even building them up as if they are main event acts. All right. So there was the one thing on Monday Night Raw, however, a 0 with a line through it, which everybody knows is one of the symbols for Pentagon or Penta El Zero Miedo. Is typically on the back of his gear, a 0 with a line through it. So they're teasing Penta. Maybe he will be making a debut on the Netflix show. That seems like they're going to bring him in by himself, which I don't see a problem with. Penta is not the wrestler he used to be, if we being honest. A couple of years ago, about 7 or 8 years ago, Penta was one of the hottest wrestlers in the business. And then he had that really long tag team run in AEW, and he's gotten kind of lazy. But I'm willing to see how quickly he's going to be able to get over because he has charisma. And I don't know how old he is. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I don't think so. But it ought to be interesting to see what they choose to do with him. Are they going to try to go with the dark character, which I think would fit WWE? So I'm very interested in how this is going to go. And it seems like they're going to bring him up to the main roster, which is probably smart. Now, yes, he could spend some time in NXT, but main roster could fit just fine. So I saw the Zito, the line through it, and I like this. Intrigued like everybody else is. And I like that they're not waiting for Phoenix, because by the time Phoenix's contract comes up, you could have actually gained some momentum with Pentagon, and then you could use Phoenix to boost Pentagon, or maybe Pentagon's running out of steam and Phoenix will come in and save them. But if we get the Pentagon that was in Lucha Underground, this is going to be a monster, and he has the growth potential up the wazoo to be a star in both the United States and in Mexico. If this is the Penta from Lucha Underground, if this is the Penta from TNA and the Penta from AEW, you're looking at straight up mid card, Zero Miedo hand signals, and that's pretty much it. He's going to be like La Parka, basically, in WCW, where people are going to think he looks cool, but they're not really going to look any deeper than that. But WWE has not had the strong push of luchadors, which is the one thing I have here that's going to be a problem for both him and Phoenix, is somebody like Dragon Lee, who probably is more, let's say, ready for the American audience because you already have Ray. He hasn't been doing anything. And this is what I mean when I complain that I keep seeing the same fucking people on this show all the time, is you have incredibly talented folks. Some of whom you called up from NXT that you choose just to not use. That you pretend that they're not even there. Like they don't exist, for God's sake. And I don't want that for Penta. I think that if you bring him in, you give him a solid push, he could mean something, you know? And I think he has the charisma and the personality to get over. But you have to, I think, make him feel motivated. And so it might be good for like the first month or two. But we'll see after that. Again, always give it time. And with Triple H, you're probably going to need even more time because he's going to drag that thing so slow. You might not even see Penta until the Royal Rumble. Which is when I would expect to see him, to be quite honest. I would be surprised if he shows up at any time before the Royal Rumble. And I wouldn't be surprised if the reason for that is to give him some time to get into shape, you know, like Nakamura, like Kevin Owens. You know, they disappeared for a little while. They didn't wrestle, and they came back in better shape. And I would think the same thing would be for Pentagon, too. Like, there's no need to rush it. Create some mystique, and then unleash the beast, if there is a beast there to be unleashed. But this is once again Triple H bringing in talent that have been around for a decade or more, not really utilizing the new talent that he's got. It's just a constant wave of new toys. It's a similar Tony Khan thing, you know. But it is what it is. I don't want to dredge on too much about that. So the tag team division is now an actual tag team, the War Raiders. There are no other tag teams in the division outside the Creed brothers, so who knows what's going to happen there. And the Intercontinental Championship, pretty solid with Bron Breakker. This guy needs to be in a feud. He needs to be cutting promos. He needs to be getting face to face with somebody. He needs a challenge, somebody that he can either smash or a wall that's difficult for him to overcome. Punk and Rollins are just doing main event guy stuff. I like it a little, but it's not as personal as it probably could be. This is just the first gear for their storyline. I'm thinking you're looking at a 3-parter here. So you're probably looking at them wrestling at the Netflix grand opening. They'll probably end up having a rematch at the Saturday Night's Main Event show, and then probably having a third one either at the Rumble itself or at some point before WrestleMania. So that's kind of how I see things going there. Drew McIntyre is just going to waffle in the wind and basically do what Kevin Owens is doing. Maybe they'll form some kind of super I Hate Roman team, you know, and I guess we'll have to pretend like that's good when it's not really. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you good people later.